I think it's astonishing, but I think it is absolutely universal within what I call the media party. Other than a handful of independent journalists, Western Standard, True North, us here, Rebel News, I don't know of any mainstream media. Maybe the National Post is an exception, but I think it is absolutely taken as the new faith in the mainstream media, like the CBC, CTV, Globe and Mail. Am I wrong on that? Like, this is the new political faith.
No, you're absolutely right. And so this book, it's as I said, it's a compilation of previously published work by about a dozen authors over the last 2 years, but they published it in alternative outlets. The legacy media were closed to us. We tried, but they were uninterested. Approaching mainstream newspapers or university presses, just absolutely no interest at all. So everything was in outlets like True North, Western Standard, C2C, Quillette, Unheard, American Conservative, not part of the corporate media. It'll be interesting to see what the corporate media does with our book now.
Oh, I know what they're going to do. They're going to
ignore it.
They're going to absolutely ignore it. They're not going to tear it apart because that would acknowledge it and maybe spark some interest in it. They will completely ignore it. Dr. Tom, the best-selling nonfiction book in Canada last year or this year was Tamara Leach's autobiography called Hold the Line. That was the number one bestseller day after day, week after week, and it didn't even get an attack review in the Toronto Star, let alone. I don't even think the Globe, the National Post acknowledged it. And that's what you do when you hate a book. You don't give it the courtesy or the respect of a review. You just pretend it doesn't exist. In fact, my question to you is, of course it's not going to be reviewed. The question is, will they try and ban it on Amazon? And I don't know if you have this information, but I would like to ask you, has the book felt any censorship pressure? Has Amazon showed any skepticism towards it? That's happened to us before. My book, China Virus, was knocked down by Amazon before they reinstated it. Has your book faced any censorship threat like that?
Well, I'm not aware that it has. I mean, it's only been on online now for, this is Thursday, the fourth day. It's been selling well. And of course, our marketing is all, you might say, underground marketing, not in the legacy media, but it's selling well. Now, whether that will lead to pressures to downgrade it or ban it, I don't know. We'll have to wait and see.
Do you plan on doing a book tour or a book launch anywhere in physical space? Because that'll be interesting, not only who comes out.
I don't think so. We haven't had any plans for that so far. It's difficult for me to travel now. I can't really leave my wife alone for long periods of time. So we may not be able to do that. So at the present time, we're trying to do as I say, underground marketing, appearing on alternative media, and grateful for the interview here with Rebel News, sending out mass emails to people's lists, getting coverages in print places that are interested, like C2C and Quillette. So we're going to reach tens, maybe hundreds of thousands of people that way, but we don't reach millions.
Right. The book is called Grave Error, How the Media Misled Us and the Truth about the Indian Residential Schools. It's available on Amazon for now and hopefully forever, but we have some experience in cancel culture and deplatforming. What I'm worried about is academia, that this is now just like you cannot dispute the faith. When it comes to global warming, you'll be called a denier. I would imagine that any academic scholarship on this matter is predetermined. And you'll get grants for saying the right things, just like you'll get a climate grant for saying the right things. And so not only is it career suicide to talk about these things, but on the other side, it's a career advancement and lots of government cash if you follow these ideological paths. I'm worried that we will absolutely, in an Orwellian way, rewrite history. For those who know the book 1984 by George Orwell, the day job of the hero, Winston Smith, was to cut out old newspaper articles from the archives, throw them out, and glue in an updated, revised history so often that after a while, no one actually knew what the truth was. I mean, I'm worried that, you know, the generation of Indigenous people who went to these residential schools is getting old, and they will die in a period of time. And soon there will be no one else to say, hey, I actually went there and I'm Indigenous, so don't try and call me racist. And here's what I liked about it. And again, I've had those conversations, including on TV, but those people, like Holocaust survivors, will be gone after a certain point of time, and then it'll all be in the hands of the revisionist historians.
Yeah. Yeah. My observation of the academic community here is that most of them are just keeping their heads down and ignoring it. And then you've got the few enthusiasts who are pushing the denialist line, and they're funded by the federal government. And then there's, you know, I can't think, now maybe somebody will appear, but I can't think of a currently employed historian or somebody in a related field who is standing up to challenge the Kamloops orthodoxy. Maybe a couple of lawyers will, like Bruce Party and so forth, but historians, political scientists, sociologists, people who should be saying, hey, this is utter nonsense, they're just ignoring it. Whether they're disgusted by it or afraid, is some combination of that. But they're just ignoring it. And of course, there are many who will believe it because it fits in with a generally woke outlook about the world being dominated by white male oppressors and everybody else being in victim groups. So, yeah, the performance of the academic community is not encouraging. When you, as I say, I can't remember a single member who is still employed. The people that I know who are challenging this myth from Kamloops are all retired. I can't remember. The one member who was employed was Frances Widdowson, and she got fired from Mount Royal University. So everybody else, I think, drew lessons from that.
It's interesting. I wonder if there are any Indigenous people themselves, if there's anyone from within the community who would have the moral authority and the aesthetic ability to repel cheap accusations of racism. I mean, sometimes to say certain things, you have to be from the community itself, otherwise you'll be condemned as a hater. Are there any contrarian voices within the Indigenous community, either scholarly or just ordinary folks on a reserve somewhere, who say, no, that didn't happen? Or are they just thinking, this is not our fight? This is a white man's academic liberal battle in universities. It actually has nothing to do with us. Just let them quarrel amongst themselves in the faculty lounge. Are there any folks in the Indigenous community?
I mean, I imagine there are, but I'm not aware of them. They haven't emerged. Nobody sent me an email and said, hey, Tom, right on, keep at it. You know, previous contacts I had in the in that world have just gone silent on the issue. So I don't know. As you pointed out, at an earlier stage, there were people who had been in the schools and talked about their positive experiences, but it's been a long time. The last school closed in 1996, but almost all of them had closed prior to that. So, you know, there haven't been very many schools now for 30 or 40 years. And so there aren't that many graduates of the schools around. So, and of course, the people that were in the schools were lured into magnifying any uncomfortable experiences they had because they could get money for telling stories in front of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. Everybody who attended a school got $10,000 a year just for being there. But beyond that, if you could allege physical or sexual abuse, you could hit the jackpot. You could go up over $100,000 for that, depending on what it was. You could get an additional 100,000 plus. So, everybody who had been through the schools in more recent times was encouraged to tell a story about how awful it was. There.